Hey Joe. Yeah, so Joe, right now I'm using a Nimbo Stratus and a Stratocumulus, both in ultra high. Yeah, I'm having an okay evening. Just decided to do a little live stream. Hey, how you doing, Phil? Just because I've got the FM9 for I don't know exactly how long. It is a lone device. Hey Sam. So I wanted to do a few videos. Michael has the FM3. He's been digging it for about 6 months. Yeah, I really dig the FM3. This basically has double the CPU of the FM3, and that means it can basically do almost everything an XFX3 can do, almost at the moment, but there's obviously kind of more of a upwards potential for the XFX3, given that still that's got, I think, twice the processing power of the FM9, if you're into that sort of stuff. But I'm quite liking the interface. You've got this like right foot, I've done a little video on it, if you roll your right foot along the kind of two up and down buttons, you can get to see all of the kind of different modes. So here I've got a looper. What does ENT mean? Handle one drive and one simple reverb, Phil, roughly. Hey Mix, thank you, I'm glad you enjoy something about the channel. Yeah, sorry, unhooked. I have to explain. Basically, a lot of my intros are total bullshit, so they're not necessarily true, the things that I say in an introduction, and unless it appears to be like true. But if it's something stupid, then the chances are it's me lying about something for jokes. But that does occasionally lead to the odd comment where I think, what are you talking about? And then I've of course have to remember that I've done probably thousands of intros talking total nonsense, so yeah, sorry about that. So has anyone got any questions about any aspect of the FM9 or anything? Kyle has been stuck on the AC20 the last week with the Fractal. It's just so freaking perfect. So as it happens, Kyle, what I want you to try is do a preset, if you're able to, where you've got the Jet 35, the 2-Rock Jet 35, as well as the Morgan AC20. If you have those two together, that's what's going on in this particular preset. Hey Chris, so I don't have any official word on when stuff is going to be available in Europe, but I think they're optimistic about it being fairly soon. I asked G66 if I could loan one for a while to try and do some videos. and they were kind enough to say yes. So that's the reason that I have one. I think I'm still like a month and a half or so behind whenever it was actually announced. Was it August? Cool, here for the plane. Yes, no, it's a perfectly legit question, Phil. Yeah, I don't have any official. I'm going to imagine that it's relatively soon, though. But yeah, that sort of thing. What makes you say no fan noise, Joe? Surely there's a little fan in this thing as well. There's a fan in the FM3, isn't there? Yeah, so this for me is how heavy is it? Like twice the weight of an FM3. Let me look up FM9 weight. It's certainly not small. 5.44 kilos. For reference, a Line 6 Helix weighs 14.6 pounds. 14.6. 11. Yeah, so it's lighter than a Helix, a bit smaller. No idea how much a Kemper stage weighs, to be honest. Personally, I would definitely pick this over a Kemper stage. I think they're similar-ish in price. Probably a Kemper stage is a bit cheaper. I don't have the Cali 76 stack, no. Phil, the reason that it definitely takes the title of most powerful floor modeler is because it has a looper, which the Quad Cortex does not. I'm using the Stratocumulus and a Nimbus Stratus, as well as a Plex delay, but the Plex delay is mixed quite low. Crew ask, would you take this one over a Helix variant? And you probably know the answer of that. I'd definitely pick it over a Quad Cortex. But kind of Helix is where I'm at, to be honest. But I've always said the reverbs and delays in the FM9 I really, really love. And it's not to say that in a world where I didn't really like the Helix stuff, that if I happened across the Fractal stuff sooner, maybe I would be fully in Fractal camp. But those are kind of the two key modelers for me that I like to explore. I'm not terribly interested in the others particularly. I think Fractal and Line 6 do the best kind of job of this stuff. Joe, I don't think that's actually true. So although Fractal update their software, I think it's just because they have, more frequent but less significant updates, if that makes sense. So in the time that I've owned Fractal stuff, they've only added 2 amp models. In the time that I've owned Line 6 stuff, they've added, loads more. So although, they have often got the updates, I don't know that I necessarily agree that they're more significant. They're certainly more frequently updating the thing, but I think Line 6 wait until there's a few things to release, if that makes sense, which is a different approach. I've never tried a Danacaster. Joe, I'm not sure if they're the same or not really. I know for sure there must have been a stage where Fractal were adding amps like crazy to get to where they're at the moment. So what we're at, 300. So there must have been a stage where they were really focused on churning out lots of different amps. And maybe that's not the focus anymore. But like you tend to see per firmware update, there might be 1 or 2 little things. So there were like 2 little drive pedals. Maybe in the last one, you get like this pitch reverb thing, which is, the pitch reverb is definitely significant, but Line 6 wouldn't release an update with just one thing, if that makes sense, or just fixes and then one thing. So slightly different approach, I think, not terribly easy to compare. The shimmer in the Fractal stuff, I believe, is the best shimmer in the world, in my opinion. Not that it particularly matters, but they're in tune. Joe, have you got an Axe FX3? I don't know if you've tried the new kind of pitches in the reverb block. I'm hoping that eventually will come across the FM9. There should be an update from line 6 generally around this time, the end of the year, you know, November, December maybe. But I wouldn't be able to say any more than that because I don't know anything. So that's all I'll say. I think I prefer Fractal to Big Sky for everything. Chris, the pitch reverb is not ported to the FM9 yet. So this was one of the little things that I mentioned in my FM9 video. There was a stage just a second ago where I think there was a lot of attention being paid to the FM3 in, probably because the FM9 was about to be announced. They got the firmware and stuff in line with the XFX3. Now, generally, I think this would be fair to say, Joe, back me up if I'm wrong on this, but I think the XFX3 sees the more frequent updates and is generally ahead of things. Cheers, Sam. Have a good rehearsal tomorrow and drive safe on your bike. So now we're seeing a bit more attention paid again to the XFX3, and so things like the full res IRs, that's only in the XFX3 at the moment, and then also the pitched reverbs, that's only in the XFX3 at the moment. You know, it's not to say that that won't come. Since there's only one reverb block available, I think the FM3's been further behind in the past, but I think, yeah. But in any case, you can expect that some of the significant stuff is probably going to arrive on the FM9 and the FM3, right? I'd assume so anyway. So, yeah, let me just try some. It gets there. Generally, I can't think of any reason why those pitch reverbs wouldn't come, because we've only got the one reverb block in the FM3 anyway. I don't know whether the full res ones might not come across the FM3, because, yeah, you never know. See you later, Joe. Thanks for stopping by. The only reason, Joe, is because it takes up an incredible amount of CPU on the XFX3 even, so I'd be surprised if the FM9 might get it, but who knows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops. Yeah, Janos. I think it's basically getting you that full Axe Effects experience, almost, right? So question here, compared to the Hotone or Hot One, Ampero 2 Stomp, for example, what really justifies the price of units like the FM3? For me, I think the biggest difference is in the interface, the user interface, and the ability to actually gig the thing. So the thing that I've noticed with all of the cheaper stuff, that's not line 6, by the way, so whether that's New X or Hot One or that sort of stuff, the actual layout of the thing, whether you call it a layout or a scene or the ability to have snapshots, all those things is what is lacking in the cheaper stuff. I don't know that sounds aren't particularly bad or anything in any of the other units. The Fractal stuff, there's also a wealth of choice far away and above any other device out there. So like 300 amps, you know, hundreds of effects, maybe thousands even. And with the things like the delay and the reverb algorithms, you can get in there and you can make changes unlike really any other device. So the deep editing that is possible in Fractal and has been now for sort of 15, 20 years is ahead of any other device as well. So those to me are some of the areas where you'd expect to then pay more for Fractal stuff. I think the Fractal stuff is also made potentially in smaller quantities to the Hot One stuff, and that plays a role in it. It's designed in America, I know. I think it's all built in China now, so not that different from that point of view, but those are some of the reasons that I think you'd end up paying quite a bit more for a Fractal piece of gear. Only 4 parameters per snapshot makes me disappointed in the FM9. Do you mean scene modifiers? I think the touchscreen is overrated, because a lot of the people, if you look at the Quad Cortex world, are asking for a PC editor, and the HeadRush stuff has a touchscreen, and I don't think that helps it sell any better particularly. I also used the HeadRush and also the Quad Cortex, and personally was not really a fan of the touchscreen. For me, it didn't really add much, but then I'm not a guy who uses a tablet. I do like to edit on the device, but personally I find having some physical knobs kind of helps. So Christopher Harper says, high-end units are really for the pros. Units like Hot One, etc. are for bedroom players and are pretty good if you don't want to use them live. I don't know. Yeah, maybe true. That might be a way of saying it. I might not put it that bluntly. Things like the Nuex MG300, I'd have been really happy with when I was a kid or growing up. I think, yeah, you'll see with the Quad Cortex that I think is mixed opinions. I think maybe because they've got the cloud stuff on that as well. For me as well, I was like, well, can I just plug into this thing instead? I don't necessarily want to have to go and stand near my router. John, I also heard about that glued on thing. I don't know, maybe whether that was one-off. That was on the gear page, was that? Something to do with the IEC input? I was just told about it today. I've not had any issues at all with my FM3, so I wouldn't necessarily expect there to be any issues with the FM9. High gain amp models on the Helix. Well, the thing is that you get fizz with higher gain. It's basically you're getting, the higher the gain is, the more frequencies you're chucking at a thing. I would use high cuts in the cabs. Fractal FM9 versus Quad Cortex, please. It's not really very difficult to choose, I don't personally think. I think there's an argument for whether you need to spend this kind of money on a modeler, for sure, if you're not going to be gigging it. You know, some people are perfectly happy playing plugins. I think a new wife is probably just as expensive. What's the one that Phoebe likes? Eternal Love. Let's try this. The other thing I think is to kind of try and you know, I don't drink or anything like that or drive an expensive car, so I think some of this gear is, you know, a perfectly reasonable way to spend money. Can't seem to get the transients out of modelling units, especially the satisfying random warm attack from a blackface style amp. And the Stratocumulus. Yeah, exactly. John's not wrong there. And also, you'll find that you can use like the FM3 I've tried in the loop for just effects as well, and that would be perfectly reasonable way to use it. And so, if it means that you can free up some other gear. Adam, yes, I do gig a setup like this live. So I've gigged the Helix lots live. I've done a few gigs with the FM3 live. I think there might even be some clips of me playing live with it. The main issue is work out how you're going to monitor it. So if you're using something like a power cab, then the way to really get it feeling and sounding good is to have things loud like you would a real amp, or, you know, loud enough where you can hear yourself. If you're going quiet through a modeler on stage, it's about as disappointing as going quietly through a real amp on stage. That's the big difference that I've kind of noticed. But you're more likely to be polite with a modeler, I think, than you are than a tube amp. And people are expecting with a modeler that you don't have to have stage volume, I guess. Adam, I would run through front of house, but also on stage for me, in an ideal situation, I would have a power cab or something like that. What do I think of the new Ibanez AES? Is that the AZ Essentials thing? I've got no idea really. I'm not sure. I think for the money that you'd spend on a new kind of cheap Ibanez, you could get an RG 550, and I think you'll find that's probably a far better guitar. Probably, or like an Ibanez S. Yeah, the Ampera sounds decent. L7 did you get, Adam? I do still really like that guitar when I get it out. Got your hands on a few. So, I think this is a bit of a misconception, by the way. There aren't really hardly any 2-rock amp models in the FM9, but I'm using one of them right now. I'm using the 2-rock Jet 35. Pull back the tail, paint. And then there's like a Ruby one, which is like a bit of a weird one anyway. There's the shorter reverb. I've just pulled that back. But what you do have in there is like actual Dumble amps, which most of the 2-rock stuff is sort of based on anyway. So you've got like the Robin Ford stuff and, you know, ODS, those things. Gaurav asks, a friend of mine argued with me saying that pedals are always better than a multi-effects unit. What's your opinion over it, John? Well, so for instance, people swear by the Digitech drop, and probably a lot of them don't realise that the poly pitch and poly capo and that stuff in the Helix is made by those exact same team of people. So chances are that they made that one in the Helix slightly later, and you know, you're very likely to end up doing things better once you've learned how to do a thing. And then that's more or less the same across the rest of the Helix. You know, some of these people have worked for other pedal companies, or some might go on to work for other pedal companies, like, you know, Meris came from Angelo, who worked for Line 6. Strymon again was founded by someone from Line 6. I think particularly things like reverb and that, it's people are working with code. They're probably not that concerned about which device it's on. With drives and stuff, maybe there's a chance, like maybe there's a chance that you need real diodes and stuff to, you know, maybe you'd argue that this particular drive pedal sounds better, I think. Why did I buy the FM9 over the Helix? I didn't buy the FM9. This is just on loan. And I wouldn't either. What's the main difference between the Fractal ecosystem and the Helix? The amount of amps, I'd say, is one of the big differences. The flexibility of the layout, it's slightly more flexible than the Helix, I'd say. In some other ways it's slightly less flexible, so, you know, you can't have unlimited delay blocks. Hey Ross, how did that go? That's a good question. I'll have to look that up a sec. I don't know if it has the impedance circuit or not. I'm going to guess that it might. Available on which products? Yeah, the FM9 does have it. The FM3 is fixed. So yeah. you imagine you've got a pentatonic, have a good day at work, Adam. Cheers. There is actually quite an easy explanation for why that was the case, John. So technically, a lot of those pedals that would have existed, you know, like an arbiter fuzz face back in the day, would not have been true bypass. So if you put that into your signal chain, and you had that at the front of your signal chain, the helix was kind of mimicking what that would actually do. Now, there is definitely an argument that you wouldn't want it to do that anyway, which I understand, and I think that's the way that I might prefer it. So, you know, if you've got a fuzz face at the front of your chain, you wouldn't necessarily expect the outcome that it used to be, but it's neat to have that as an option now. Wayne, this is the preset that I would have just dropped into the Fractal folder, which is called, I can't remember what it's called. Is it JC Ice FM9 and Axe9, something like that? But it should work on your Axe effects. But like the Podgo doesn't have that impedance thing, and I don't particularly miss it. I don't know, it's one of those things which I think is like engineering, and sometimes, you know, if you don't understand how it's working, like I think lots of people didn't, I certainly didn't for a long time, you know, didn't understand what that relationship between your guitar and the impedance circuit. I feel like by default that's the sort of thing that could just be set off rather than always on. The only difference is, Wayne, I've put an internal love at the front of this, which is with settings, the drivers at 2.16. Yeah, exactly. Gaurav, did you have the looper after the delay or before it or something? I think, John, so my opinion is that it should by default be on that true bypass mode, right? That's what I kind of think, but I still think you have to go into that global setting and turn that off to be, you know, first enabled rather than first in the chain. So I think there might still be some work to do on that. preset graph and I'll try and see if I can replicate the problem. So Basel asks, any thoughts about the DSP? Yeah, it's quite an incredible difference from the FM3. So I think I did a video, I had a preset which had one reverb at ultra high, it had the plex, delay and a pitch up, and I think that was at 38%, no sorry, that was at about 70% on the FM3. I brought that over to the FM9 and it's down at 38%. And then I added 2 amps to it and all that sort of stuff. johnnathancordy@gmail.com. And, you know, adding basically as much as I could to the thing. So this is that 70% model layout, sorry, whatever you would call it, preset, but moved over to the FM9. I added another reverb, I added 2 amps and 4 cabs and a drive, and it still only sort of touches 65%. And there's a looper in there as well. So I think for people that were finding the FM3, they hit that DSP limit. I feel like you could probably pretty much do anything you want with the FM9. I'd be surprised if people are starting to hit that limit. Although, you know, there probably are some people out there that might have particular needs that might differ from mine. Yeah, that's right, John, that's how I would set that. Basically that first enabled gives you essentially like true bypass mode on your Helix, which is, or HX Stomp, which is how I would have it set. Yeah, so John asks, the FM9 has limits at 2 amps and 4 IRs. Yeah, basically they allocate a certain amount of blocks for each thing. You can go on the website and find these out specifically, but I think it's like 2 delays, 2 reverbs, 2 drives, 2 amps, 4 cabs. I think that covers that roughly. There's only 1 plex block, whereas in the Axe FX3 you'd have 2 plex blocks. But I'm running this preset here. Has got 2 reverbs running at ultra high, a plex and a pitch, you know, and it's getting to 65%. And I think you can get up to about 80% before the Fractal stuff doesn't particularly like it anymore. That's sort of the CPU limit. Yeah, let's get Steve Lukather on it. Any song requests? Oh, awesome, Pez. Glad you're enjoying it. What's a donkey blanket strap? Send me that in the old messenger. Give me a second. Right, I'll just turn off the drive. Bypass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Alright, I'm going to add this little bit in. I can't play neon. Sorry, it'd be better if I could actually play it. See you, Wadey. really hard to play that in time at all. Sorry. Maybe if I just don't have the bit. We get 3 headphone jacks. I think it's got the 1 headphone jack, so it's already better than some of the FM3s. The 4 XLR, I think, would be to have XLR going to other monitors, maybe something like that. Any other quick requests? I'll probably have to wrap this up in a second. Sasha, how are you getting on with your QC? Yeah, I don't think there's any real fan noise going on, Joe, that I've noticed. Which Ibanez Prestige did I buy? It was the Ibanez RGT 220Z. Yeah, it came up nearby for like £650. I think my internet might be about to go stupid. Possibly. I don't know, it's dropping some frames now. Who's that? What are you doing? Oh, thank you very much for that. It was unnecessary, Mr. Nuts. It's not bothering at all, Joe. No, I don't know. Some people have had noisy Axe Effects fans, right? And I think you're going to get a little bit of noise. So, but if you're listening in headphones, is that going to be enough to bother you? I don't know. You're probably hearing some noise in the room now, but that's probably more likely to be like my PC fan. So, yeah. Retain the loop. What do I need? Looper. So I'm now on my kind of lead preset. Would I say this slays the quad cortex? I'd probably try not to use words like that too much. I think, I don't know how many years it might be that the quad cortex would have caught up with what the FM9 could do. Yeah, I don't know. If I had to choose between them, that would be what I would go for, the FM9. Cheers, Buzz. there's certainly things that I was not necessarily expecting the quad cortex to still be where it is now. We're almost, I think, 2 years away from when it was announced at NAMM, and you know, things they were saying that it would be able to do then, it's not, excuse me, it's not really caught up with that yet. So I don't know if they'd be particularly happy with some of the things that are still not possible, you know, loading plugins, loopers, these kind of things. You know, no desktop editor like Dusty Nut says. It's not to say it can't do a bunch of things pretty well. Yeah, I mean, even like the Axe-Fx 2 is certainly, I would think, more usable in its state right now. I know there's this idea that in the future the quad cortex will be continuing to improve, but that's not really something you can guarantee. And so I think the way to buy gear generally is not based on what might be possible in the future, and that's certainly not been the case with most other modelers. You know, like the Helix wasn't sold on the promise of future stuff, the Fractal stuff has never been sold on the promise of what's possible in the future, or the Kemper, or even any of the cheaper things like the Boss GT, and that's not even cheaper, is it? But you get what I mean. Like, none of it has been sold on a promise of future stuff, and I feel like that's not the sort of thing that I would want to see more of in the gear world. You know, the idea that the Helix continues to get better is a bonus rather than something that you take for granted. How would I compare this to the Helix? The FM9, I guess, could do everything that a Helix could do, and vice versa. The reverbs and the delays in the Fractal I find a little bit more flexible, and having control of things like diffusion blocks I would like to have in the Helix. Aside from that, I find them to be both very useful pieces of gear. Let's try a bit more playing, sorry, whilst hopefully it's buffering okay. Let me know if you've got any other questions. I'll probably go for another 8 minutes or so if you've got any questions about whatever. Thank you for everyone who's contributed to that super chat. It's nice to know that people are still watching this stuff. Cheers. Wasn't that speculation from around the time of the Iridium, Joe? I've not heard anything about Strymon coming out with anything. And the thing that makes me wonder whether they would bother doing that would be the way that they don't really support their devices, particularly after release. So, for instance, something like the Timeline, something like the Big Sky, something like the Iridium, there's a whole world of things that it could have done to improve those devices post-launch. But, you know, 10 years on from the Timeline and all of that stuff, I don't know that anything is really getting changed. So, to me, I think a modeler, although what I've just said there about it must kind of, it's not sold on the promise of future stuff, but a company that has never really done anything to update an older product, I don't know if that would be a good way to step into the modelling world. Although the Iridium was great at what it did, I think people already in the modelling world are expecting, like, and this is kind of the burden that Quad Cortex have got on your DSP, is that they will continue to improve their devices, which is not something that Strymon necessarily have done. Kenneth says he ordered his FM9 in August and still have not heard. You're in America, Ken? thing. The issue that I've had with the HeadRush stuff is not only was I reading too many things about people that are having units go bad, so mine was a second-hand unit. I got a bit nervous about that, and then the other thing is that they don't really significantly update their stuff particularly either, and so when they brought out the MX5, although it's smaller and stuff, it wasn't really bringing anything new to the party, and they haven't really done too much in the way of updates since I last had one, so I'm not massively interested. If they sent me a unit, I'd do something with it, but I don't think they know who I am. And for the money that I'd spend on getting one, I don't think the level of interest is particularly there for me. I don't think. You're in Scotland, right? So that was one of the things that made me a bit nervous. But if you've got a new device, then you've got a guarantee from wherever you bought it from as well, so you're probably fine. But I didn't. It's just me, shall I record a bit of it? I'll record it and put it up later on with the drum kit. This is just a loop that I've set up. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put the backing up on Patreon later on. No, it's just a loop, but I can make something out of it for you. Hopefully. So just remind me to do that. What would we call that? FM9 live stream loop. It's just sort of like a little funky A minor, A Dorian vamp. How do you use a volume pedal or something? Just add it in. Thoughts on the FM9 versus HX Stomp in terms of the sound quality? You'd have to, ask an engineer or something. I think the FM9 would have kind of fixed oversampling, which might be slightly higher than the HX Stomp. Brad, but the thing is, I don't think the DSP on the FM9 particularly adds to the sound quality per se. It just means you can run more of the blocks, but I think the sound quality across like the HX Stomp and the Helix would be comparable between the two. It's just you've got the ability to run more DSP kind of programs in there, right? Awesome, Mark. That's good to hear. The idea of doing some of these videos is to try and help some people get some of the sounds, like if they dig the stuff that I'm doing, then at least I can show sort of what I did to get there. And most of the time it happens to be quite simple, which is good. I think Line 6 would come out with Helix 2 anytime soon. They have specifically said that they're not going to. so that would lead me to believe that probably not anytime soon. I don't know what to expect from line 6 next. I still think there's plenty of life in the Helix though. It's not often, so with the full Helix, with the 2 kind of processors, there's so much you can do with it. And even if you've got the HX Stomp, for instance, you know, you could do so much with those blocks as well. It's just you have to be a bit more economical with them. If they did a Helix 2 now, there'd be a mutiny. See, the thing is, I feel like Fractal update their hardware pretty often, and people do that. Yes, Kenneth, absolutely. On the Helix stuff, there's a thing called the shuffling looper and the glitch delay, which you'll find a few videos of on my channel. I really love those. I'll just send you a video in a sec, Kenneth. Let me just find this. There's one called like Odd Helix Noises. So this video was specifically kind of trying to get some of those blooper vibes. And then if you look on my channel, there are some kind of blooper videos as well. And I had a chase bliss moved, but I found that I can do basically what that does with the Helix as well. John says custom IRs are overrated, cabinets are very capable when set up right. I agree. So Brad says he uses the Stomp, I think. Something to do with stuff. The thing is with like the line 6 stuff, I imagine at some point surely they get to the stage where the money would be in creating new hardware and selling more hardware. I don't know. How to get the most out of stock cabs. I think Jason Sadites might have done some stuff. I could do something on that maybe in my thoughts. I think we'll have some improvements in IARs in the next year, and with that bringing the need for more storage capability and possibly more processing horsepower. Yeah, I don't know, I think there's interesting stuff. There's a video from a guy called Nick Hill, I believe, about why he uses stock cabs now. And I find myself using stock cabs, the dual stock cab, quite a bit. I don't think you do have to buy IRs to sound good. I think it's more just the case. So also the experience for me when I've looked at IRs is that you get, what, 100, and you've still got to sift through them to find the one that works for you. Then it's no different really than kind of going through your stock cabs, which don't sound objectively worse or anything. You just have to find the thing that works for you. So find a cab that you dig. So I found that the Cali V30 works for quite a lot of the heavier stuff or whatever. And then if you use the dual kind of cab of that, I like to use a 57 and either a ribbon mic or a condenser mic. I find that you can get some really good tones out of that anyway. And it's not essential to use IRs. And I still think the main general experience of using IR is literally you have to just sift through a bunch to find the one that you're kind of comfortable with how it sounds. When I watch the pros and see they only use 4 sounds. Yeah, that's my general experience when I gig live. I've got a rhythm tone, a lead tone, a clean tone, and then the fourth is just that clean tone with a delay. Rick Leyland says get the free IR off of Leon Todd. That's all you need. Shout out for our Australian fellow there. Rick used to be my music tech teacher. Right, I'm starting to get a dry throat now, so I'm going to sign off. Thank you everyone for joining in with this. That's the Fractal FM9, just some thoughts on it. I think it's a really useful kind of in-between point, and you know, like the natural successor to the Axe 8. Great. It's not necessarily just knowledge either, though. I think it may just be that those IRs are the sound that you're going for in your head. So if you found one that works for you, then stick with it. Absolutely. I personally didn't necessarily find that I was lacking with the stock cabs, so that's been the route that I've gone down as well. I don't think IRs actually take any more DSP than the stock cabs, by the way. I think it's slightly lessy. So maybe feel free to stick with those IRs if they're working for you. Right, I'll catch you in a little bit. I need to go and drink a water. Cheers!